Donnie Darko. Beautiful, beautiful Donnie Darko. It's a movie I've wanted to talk about for a long time, but I don't do like a movie review or talk or whatever unless I've seen the movie very recently. I've seen this movie probably 3 or 4 times at least, and I love it. It's like one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time. Came out in 2004. I don't remember when I saw it. I don't remember the circumstances of me seeing it. It's a weird one, just because I love that movie so much you think I would remember how I was introduced to it, but I don't recall. I know that it wasn't when it came out. Like, I didn't hear of it for years. Like, I was probably in my mid-20s, mid to late 20s before I had seen it. I just don't remember how that came about. But, 2004 is when it came out, so year I graduated high school, if I want to date myself. Jake Gyllenhaal, the sister Maggie, you got Patrick Swayze, Drew Barrymore, some other folks in there that I don't know the names of off the top of my head. It's a gooder. It's really hard to describe, which is one of the reasons why I was like, how do I approach this? Let's just wing it, because that's what I do most of the time anyway. Sometimes I take notes, but not today. I was trying to describe the movie to somebody else, and I was like, I don't know how to put this into a genre. Like, if I said it was weird, then I would say it in the spirit of one of the characters that says it's a compliment. Like, they call somebody weird and they say, no, that's a compliment. But, like, weird is obviously very vague and does not do this justice whatsoever. So my challenge is going to be right now to try and describe, before we get into spoilers, because always I want to entice you to watch the movie before I get into spoilers. And how do I do that without telling you really what happens and what's it about? Because there's certain phrases and themes that I want to avoid because they carry a lot of baggage and they don't properly represent what the movie's about. So, there's definitely some cerebral elements. There's definitely some suspense, some psychological things, but I wouldn't call it a psychological thriller. I wouldn't call it a suspense. There's some creepy elements. I would not ever put this in the horror genre, whatever, like, at all. It isn't like some crazy summer blockbuster movie in any regard of it being like this crazy drama. There's dramatic elements. There's I don't know how to... Yeah, it's really difficult to express. Just trying to be like, there's elements of this, that, and the other thing, but it's not any of those things. Wow. How do you describe this? Should have worked on this a little more. One of the things I love about it is that it's so hard to pigeonhole. It's like... Some of the bands that I love that are in my, top 4 favorite bands ever is because I can't put them into a genre that's like, it's like they've made their own genre. And this movie, I wouldn't go as far as to say it made its own genre or whatever, but it seems like it's just all its own. It's really difficult to put into any type of box or put under an umbrella of something. There's certain things that it is and there's certain things that it's not. Is it a comedy? No. Does it have some comedic elements? There's some dark humor in there that I enjoy, but... I wouldn't say this is a drama, but it definitely has dramatic elements, and it's presented in a way that's way different than a stereotypical drama would be. I would say, like, it's definitely not a romance movie. There's maybe a love interest in there, but again, like, is it a feel-good movie? Not really. Is it a family movie? I could say no. Like, I can just go through a list of a bunch of things, but then be like, is it a suspense? Kind of. But, again, it's just so... out there that it's hard to describe. So now that you've heard me rant about what it is and what it's not, I need to do a better job of actually framing this in a way that makes you want to watch it, because it's amazing. It is not... I would not categorize it as, a journey of self-discovery, but it has an element to that, and we focus on Donnie Darko, who is a high school student, who is incredibly intelligent, who is going through some interesting changes in his life, and he is a little out of touch with other people's reality. That's as much as I can say about that right now. And he is working through that, or with it, or I don't know how to describe it, but this movie bases itself around him and his journey, I guess, of him trying to figure things out. And yeah, what else can I say that's general and vague enough but specific enough to get you in here? Again, I would say it has a darker feel to it. I think that, when I said it's not like a feel-good movie, like, it depends on how you look at it. It's not a stereotypically like, hey, it's this family-friendly thing and everything works out in the end and it's great. It's not that things don't work out in the end, but that depends on your perspective and depends what you get out of it, because it's definitely a movie where you can interpret things in a couple different ways. And I know the first time I watched it, I was like, I don't really know what just happened, but I think I have an idea, but I don't know. I don't think it has an open ending, so it's not that. It's just that, like, the events unfold in a way that make you question what reality maybe you should be investing in, or how you would interpret the possibility of two different realities, or whatever. That makes it sound kind of like sci-fi-y in a way, and that's one word or phrase I wanted to avoid using. But it is somewhat applicable, but not in a stereotypical way. So it's like, it's so different. It's just so incredibly different, and it just has a lot going on. I feel like there are many opportunities here for reflection, like personal reflection, for just like things to ponder on, things to think about. It's just presented in such a different way that I just don't know how to describe it. Like I said, there's a little bit of dark to it. There's definitely, I don't want to say it's artsy, because that makes it sound like people have a certain idea of what that's about. It's, like I said, it's not like this crazy summer blockbuster movie of any type of genre, but it also doesn't really have an indie feel. So we're set in the 80s, and the soundtrack is impeccable. It's amazing. We definitely get certain vibes that seem almost very unique to this place that it's set in, which is Middlesex. And yeah, you just got characters. Like, it's, oh man, what is it? How do I present this? It is quite beautiful, but in this darker way. Sneezing. It is quite beautiful, but in this darker way that's really difficult to express. It makes you not only reflect and question maybe yourself and whatever, but also just what you're watching. And it just, I don't know, it like takes you for a ride, but it's different than it's like, oh, it takes you for this wild ride. That just, like, all these little sound bites and kind of like buzzwords and stuff like that, it just doesn't apply here, which is what makes it so great, because it doesn't move at an incredibly fast pace. It gives you a fullness, I guess, to the story. I don't think it's that slow, but I know that it's on the slower end of things in its pace and how it moves. But that time is a character in this film, more so than other times. And that's something that, yeah, I can't really expound on much more, but the pacing of things and how you move through time is its own character and incredibly important. And I think part of it is like in a way that you don't really notice, but I mean, its pacing is very deliberate. Everything here seems deliberate. There's a lot of rich symbolism and metaphor and things that are adjacent. I would say, if you really want to get a lot out of a movie and also be like, what just happened? It's a little on the darker spectrum of things, but it gets you thinking and feeling and reacting. It also has a lot of references. Like, I would say this, pay attention to the books that they're reading or things like that, because they give little references as to things that they want you to maybe think about deeper. There's just a lot of these little things that come back. It's like a callback to something, and some of it becomes very obvious, and some of it is a little more of an Easter egg or just like a little nod to something. I don't know how else to explain it. It's, not a journey of self-discovery, but it's kind of someone trying to work some things out and figure things out. And I mean, I can't do a good job of this, and that's part. But it's part of what makes it amazing. So I'm going to get into spoilers now, because it's one of those things where you can interpret it in a bunch of different ways, and I just, we're going to get into it. Right meow. So I don't even know where to start. So we've got Donnie. It seems like he is possibly schizophrenic. He's, hearing things, he's seeing things, he's got an imaginary friend. This stuff's going on. He's had problems in the past, like with doing certain things. We don't know if that's tied to the character of Frank or not. And I'm saying stuff like now really quickly to assume you've already watched it. But yeah, so Frank, his imaginary friend, who is a 6-foot-tall bunny rabbit. We don't know how long Frank's been in his life necessarily. We don't know some of the things that Donnie's done in the past are linked to that, or they were just like random delinquent behavior that's not tied to him, having these hallucinations or interacting with an imaginary being. There's just, a lot going on with that stuff. But I want to get into the meat of this. So, I mean, here's the thing. At the beginning of the movie, I'm just going to skip to, the big question, the big thing. The thing that I think about is that Donnie is called to the golf course by Frank. And he's called, and during that time that he is not in his bed where he should have been, that's when the jet engine falls. He should have died. He didn't die. Frank saved his life. Why did Frank save his life? Just to give him an opportunity to, quote unquote, time travel and put himself back in that place later to die. And so you wonder why, I guess. It's really hard for me to, remember exactly how I felt the first time watching it, because it was quite a long time ago. I know that I was like, what happened? And I don't understand what's going on. But if you start to think about all the events that unfolded during, the 30 or 28 days, I guess, 28 days from, him not dying when he could have, to then him at the end being, going back into his room and, laughing while he waits for death. He's elated, he's happy, he's calm and peaceful at one moment as well, while he accepts that he's putting himself in that place. What changed? Those 28 days, the thing that I go back to is that, because I was thinking, this is redundant. Why did he end up... Frank calls him away from there so he doesn't die, just so that he could figure out all the stuff about time travel and whatever, just so he can put himself back in a situation so he does die. Why didn't you just kill him off in the first place? And, I mean, the only thing I can go back to is Gretchen, right? Is that he saves Gretchen. He saves her life. He sacrifices his own life to save her life. Because when during the course of these 28 days, they meet, they start going together, and she ends up at... This is the thing that happens with time travel, is that everything becomes it just becomes a loop of why did this have to happen this way or whatever, and you get stuck in that, or at least I do, easily. But yeah, so all of these events happen where he's just trying to figure out the time travel stuff, and then she ends up dying, and then he puts himself back in that place. But it's he started this process without the same purpose that I can figure out. He didn't start this to save Gretchen because he didn't know Gretchen was going to die. And then she dies, and then it seems like the only thing that changes is that when he goes back in time and puts himself in his room and dies, that him and Gretchen never met. And because they never met, she isn't going to be in that scenario 28 days later or 27 days later where she dies. Therefore, you know, you assume that she will, you know, that was his purpose, was to save her. But that wasn't his intention at the beginning. He was just doing what he was told and like following a path and like trying to figure out why he's being told these things and how he's being told these things and like whatever, right? So that kind of puts things into this weird question of like, okay, so he started doing this thing, he didn't know why, and then he ends up saving her life, and maybe that's the whole purpose of this, but it's hard to like say that that was the reason because he didn't know the reason, and it's just like, we're just on this journey with him, and then we've got to reflect on why the hell did this happen. And so I would love to hear people's thoughts and theories, questions, comments, etc., because it's one of those things, like, I haven't really gone and done outside research. I'm like, maybe writer, director, whatever, other people that worked on the film, maybe they eventually gave insight into what it actually means, or, you know what I mean? Because it's not clear, or, like, what actually happens. But it seems like Donnie is a savior figure, at least to me. That's how I frame it. Because that's the thing that really changes, is that he puts himself back in that place to die. And I mean, there's a lot of things that don't happen, and some of them aren't necessarily good because, you know, Jim Cunningham, without Donnie like burning down his house, you don't know that he's got this child pornography thing going on. So that's not a good change, right? Like that's not going to happen now. So he can continue to do whatever he's doing without detection. And yeah, there's just moments where, like, I don't know, it's just messed up in a good way. It's just messed up. Like, that's the best way to put it. Like, but it's a thinker, and I don't know, it makes me feel a lot of things. It makes me reflect on a lot of things. It just has a lot of beauty to it, with, you know, the cellar door thing, or just like the books they're reading and why, and like these other references that are in our reality and in our universe, like Watership Down and like Graham Greene and like whatever, right? Like, these things are real things, tangible things that we have in our reality that they reference. And just like these smaller roles in there that flesh out Donnie's world are just so beautiful, in sometimes guiding him, or just like guiding us, or like that we connect with these things that are going on around him in this beautiful way, even though this is all about him and what he's doing and why, and trying to figure that out. I feel like in some ways this is probably the worst movie review I've ever done, because it's so hard for me to just like pick out like very specific things as to why it's so damn good. But again, it can't be pigeonholed. That's the wrong phrasing. I can't put it under an umbrella or a box or whatever that seems to fit right. And like trying to find words to attach to it. It's dark and beautiful and cerebral and emotional. And it's just an incredibly well done film that is also like, what the hell just happened? But it's not in like an aggressive way. It's not aggressively like, I can't believe this. Like, what? Like, it doesn't get that from me. But it's Donnie Darko, man. Yeah. I don't know how to profess my love for this in a way that seems to make any sense. But if you are a deep thinker, maybe a creative person, someone who enjoys the 80s, like, it has this weird 80s feel, but it's not the type of corny. Like, it's set in the 80s, but it's not an 80s movie, therefore it doesn't have that token corniness about it at all. It's got some beautiful dark humor. It's got some beautiful things to reflect on. It's just done so different. Just go watch it. I should have just, that should have been the movie review right there. 30 seconds of just like, da-da-da-da-da, just go watch it. That's it. See you another time.